Alright guys, so in this set of notes we're just going to quickly talk about the political spectrum. It's just going to be a brief introduction on what the political spectrum is, but also talk a little bit about differences between the Democratic and Republican Party, and also the differences between conservatives, liberals, and we have to do it in 15 minutes. So if I talk really fast, that is why. Alright, so first and foremost, definition for political spectrum. This is a tool used to visually compare different political positions by placing the positions on one or more axes. So if we look at this picture here, it'll show us kind of that spectrum that I'm referring to. So you probably hear people say a lot that they are, far left, or they're left of center, or they're right on the political spectrum. And when they say that, this is kind of what they are referring to. And so, obviously when we are talking far left, we're talking about the Democratic Party. So, if you're in this green area here, you'd probably be considered a Democrat. And then if you're on the far right spectrum, you're more Republican, more in line with Trump, for example. Also, you're going to be considered more conservative if you're towards the right. You're going to typically want to go with the way that things have always been. Where when you're far left, again, you're Democrat, and you're typically going to be more liberal and be very open to change. So in the United States, most commonly used political spectrum, again, this is also known as the political continuum, places a range of beliefs along a horizontal line and is described in terms of left or right of center. And again, you could be in the center, or you could be an independent even. All right, so most commonly the political spectrum tells us two things: how much change in government a person is willing to allow, and how fast that change should take place. And then also how much the government should intervene or get involved in the lives of the people, particularly with the respect to economy. And so again, if we look back at our spectrum here, the Democratic Party is going to want more government regulation. They're going to want more involvement from the government, whereas the Republican Party is going to want less involvement, and they're not going to be as open to change either. So here are some general assumptions. So on the far left, more government intervention, again, like I said, gradual to rapid change in government, where on the right, less government intervention and little to no change in the status quo. Status quo just meaning how things currently are, especially when we're talking about politics or society. All right, ideologies, liberalism versus conservatism. So conservatives, again, favor limited government involvement in the economy and often favor government involvement in social issues to preserve traditional values. Liberals, on the other hand, they favor government regulation of the economy to benefit society. And then when it comes to social issues, they prefer a limited government rule. Alright, so this image here is called a four-cornered ideological grid, and as you can see, we have the different views kind of listed here. So we have our liberals, our libertarians, economic liberals, cultural conservatives, and then conservatives. And if we look at the vertical choices here, so it kind of goes from, cultural order to cultural liberty, which that's what it says right here, but you can't really see it very good. And then our horizontal range here goes from economic equality to economic liberty. And it just kind of describes, each group here and kind of how they feel about equality versus liberty and order versus liberty. When it comes to, obviously, economics and culture. All right, ideologies. The traditional political spectrum. So socialism, strong support for economic and social equality, and then libertarianism is a a group of people who are skeptical when it comes to the government. Classical liberalism, liberal once meant limited government and no religion in politics. And what's actually very interesting is, so currently the Democratic Party is considered liberal and the Republican Party is considered more conservative. And it actually used to be the other way around. So the Democratic Party used to be conservative and then the Republican Party used to be more liberal. But times have changed that, and it's actually, again, it's completely swapped it. Also here, liberal evolved into this modern American meaning along with the political evolution of the Democratic Party. Once the party of limited government, but now the party of relative economic equality. So times have changed. Here's just a look at the traditional political spectrum. So first here, how much power should the government have over the economy? And again, you can see the various groups here and how they feel about governmental power. So socialists say active, liberalism says positive, action in the economy, conservative, positive government action to support capitalism, liberalism, almost no regulation of the economy. And then what should the government promote when it comes to socialism, economic equality, and then also community, liberalism, economic security, equal opportunity, social liberty, conservatism, economic liberty, morality, and social order, and then libertarianism, total economic and social liberty. And so you can start to see the differences between these different ideas. Other ideologies, communism, a revolutionary variant of socialism, much more extreme version of socialism. Okay, so remember, this is going to be when everything is publicly owned, the wealth is redistributed evenly, the government has complete control, they decide what you do, they take your profits, they redistribute them. They have control of all the enterprises. Typically, we see dictatorships with communism, and there's no free markets like we have here in the U.S. Fascism, this is often known as totalitarian as well. Typically, an absolute ruler and complete rejection of individualism. Ideologies in the Islamic world, while communism and fascism are the historical ideologies that totalitarianism was coined to describe, our current international concern is that the radical and fundamental interpretation of Islam known as Islamism rejects Western democratic values and desires worldwide Islamic political power. All right, so quick recap here. Left, used to describe people who support change in society and government intervention. Right refers to, left is used to describe people who support change in society and government intervention, and then the right refers to people who hold traditional values and want less government intervention. Here's another look at the spectrum. Again, far left of the political spectrum they're much more radical or liberal, and they call for wide sweeping rapid change in the basic structure of political, social, or economic system, may be willing to resort to extreme methods to bring about change, including the use of violence and revolution. If you're a little more towards the center, that would be considered liberal. Government should be actively involved in the promotion of social welfare of the nation's citizens, call for peaceful, gradual change within the existing political system, and reject violent revolution as a way of changing the way things are. If you're moderate and kind of in the middle, may share viewpoints with both liberals and conservatives, tolerant of other people's views, do not hold extreme views, and advocate a go slow or wait and see approach to social and political change. Conservative favor keeping things the way they are or maintaining the status quo, usually hesitant or cautious about adopting new policies, especially if they involve government activism. They feel that the less government there is, the better. And then reactionary, far left of the ideological spectrum, want to go back to the way things were, the good old days, often willing to use extreme methods such as repressive use of government power to achieve their goals. All right, so spectrums in the parties. Political parties are loosely formed around these broad political ideologies. Again, Democrats are going to be left, and they're going to be generally seen as liberal and support regulation, government regulation. Republicans generally seen as conservative because they advocate a reduction in the government. More specifically, within parties, there are people who hold a variety of opinions on social and economic issues that fall along the spectrum of political ideologies. Some examples: liberal Democrats, modern Republicans, and conservative Republicans. Both parties lean towards moderate, and we talked about this, and we talked about polarization and how we're actually starting to see once they're in office, once they're elected, we're starting to see a divide between the parties, making it so hard to come to any agreement because both fear one another. And here, it's kind of referring to the fact that they, while they are campaigning, they have to kind of hold these moderate views, because if they don't, then they are going to lose particular voters. So current theorists say that the U.S. political parties are becoming increasingly moderate and therefore less easily separated by the political spectrum. So where would you put communists, socialists, fascists, absolutists on this spectrum? Current issues, again, left, pro-gun control, pro-choice when it comes to abortion, no censorship, prisons should rehabilitate, pro-privacy, equal funding for education, the Democratic Party, and then platform. And then rights, or far right, this is going to be the Republican Party, anti-gun control, pro-life, anti-flag burning, prisons should punish, prayer in schools, school vouchers, and then, again, Republican Party platform.